This is a presentation, the first of several, in which we're going to discuss the concept of intellectual property and what it means for you in your writing essays and compositions of every type throughout the rest of your academic career. Some of the terms that we're going to be using in this presentation include intellectual property, copyright, plagiarism, fair use, and the word tangible. So keep those in mind as we go along. First, property. The title of this presentation, intellectual property, refers to something that you may not be familiar with. It may be a strange term for you. So let's break it down. First, you're probably familiar with the word property. When we think of the word property, we're usually thinking of something physical that we own. Maybe it's a piece of land, maybe it's a house that sits on that land, maybe it's a skateboard you own or a car that someday you hope to own. All of this is property. But not only that, it's something called tangible property. Tangible means it's real, it's physical. You can touch it, you can see it, and very often you can use it. What's more, only one person can use a piece of tangible property at a time. If I own a book and I give it to you, I don't own that book anymore. If I sell my house, I no longer have that house. It's the property of the person who bought it from me. But intellectual property is different. Intellectual property is that product of the mind. Intellectual product refers to creations of the mind, such as inventions, literary and artistic works and symbols, and so forth. For instance, music is intellectual property. Poems are intellectual property. So are movie scripts. Because intellectual property is not tangible, it can be owned by more than one person at a time. Let's take MP3 recordings for an example. An MP3 recording of a song that we both like is the easiest thing in the world for me to copy. I can just make a duplicate, an exact duplicate, and give it to you. Because digital technology allows us to make as many absolutely perfect copies as we want, both of us can own the same song, despite the fact that I'm the only one who actually purchased it. This has created some important issues of ownership and respect for intellectual property that we're going to discuss. In the meantime, think of other kinds of intellectual property. How many can you name? Now, if somebody came along and stole your tangible property, such as a bike or a car, there's no question he'd be violating your property rights. After all, theft is a crime. But what about intellectual property rights? You might ask if there is such a thing, and the answer is yes, absolutely. Just like the owners of tangible property, the owners of intellectual property have rights too. Those rights include the right to determine who can use the creations and how, the right to protect property from misuse, and the right to prevent theft of their property. Let's go back to that example from a few moments ago. Have you ever downloaded a song from an illegal download site? Or have you ever just given an MP3 file to a friend? Well, believe it or not, if you've done that, you've committed a crime. How about this one? Have you ever copied numerous sentences and paragraphs from a book or magazine into a class project you were writing without including information in your report on where you got the information? If you have, you're guilty of a practice called plagiarism. Plagiarism is one of the most common forms of intellectual property right violations, particularly among students. The good news is that there are ways to avoid plagiarism while still getting the benefits of research done by others, and we'll get to that.